Welcome, TEI family, to another episode of The Everyday Investor. Today, we have a very special guest. This person has dominated in industries from real estate to the trucking industry and so much more. Please help me welcome Tia Drain. How is it going, Tia?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I know we had a chance to talk offline earlier today, and we talked about a number of different things. And I told you how excited I was to have you on, just because you are going to be able to. First of all, being the first woman guest here is, I think, is impressive. But I think you're going to be able to talk to a lot of different people, whether it's men or women, just based on a number the things that you have done over the course of the years. But specifically to women, Black women. And stay-at-home moms. Again, you have done so much, and I think as we get off into this conversation and kind of you talk a little bit about your story and the things that you're doing, uh, I think a lot of people are going to get some jewels from it. Again, you're involved in real estate. You were involved in the trucking industry, in the armed forces, and currently in the healthcare industry, and so much more things that you are a part of. Which again, we will touch base on or hit on each one of those areas as we go through here. But I kind of want to always like to go back to the beginning in terms of where did you grow up? How did you grow up? As far as, was it a wealthy family, whether it's a middle class family, or was it a lower class family? And kind of talk about some of the things that just how you grew up, and I guess some of those principles that were instilled in you as you were, I guess, going up through from middle school to high school, and I guess going on after you got out of your parents' house and after high school.
Okay. Well, I am honored to be here, and thank you for inviting me. I grew up in Muskegon, Michigan,
Okay.
and I grew up on Jackson Hill in a small house, and it was what would be considered poverty, I guess you could say, but we were kind of like what is known in the hood community as hood rich.
Rich, yeah, hey, yeah, for sure. And it's funny you
So,
said that because I mean, obviously hood rich, and then I went to a suburban high school, and I'm like, ah,
mm,
man, we don't got it where I'm from. I thought we had it good because we were in
we
our
don't
bubble,
for
but
real.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so you grew up hood rich. Okay, keep
Yeah,
going.
so I grew up in a two-parent household, both my mother and my father.
Okay,
And then I was blessed. I was what would be considered. My mom said we weren't spoiled, or she said the difference between spoiled milk and yogurt is that it's cultured, and that we weren't spoiled, but we were cultured. So that's
gotcha.
what kind of like mind frame that we grew up with. I went to Muskegon High School, and then after Muskegon High School, I went into Michigan State, and that's where I'm an alumni from. I did my 4 years there. Once I finished
So,
Michigan State, I entered into. Go
so,
ahead.
so, so hold on. So, I guess growing up before, I guess getting to Michigan State or kind of making that decision to go to college as opposed to doing something else, uh, how was it growing up? Did your parents, because again, you were a lot further off than most in terms of growing up in a two-parent household. A lot of times, unfortunately, uh, you know, just people in general, especially in the African American community, grew up in a one-parent household. So growing up in a two-parent household, did you have conversations with your mom and dad surrounding money? How was that viewed? I know for me personally, growing up, it was like a taboo subject to talk about. Obviously, we needed money to live, pay the food, pay the rent, things like that. But we really didn't talk about it as far as investing and getting ahead. How was the conversation surrounding money and investing in your household?
I was actually fortunate enough. My mother is an accountant, and my dad
Oh,
was
wow.
kind of somewhat of a carpenter. So
Okay.
I grew up with both the balance of book smart and street smart.
Yeah, for sure.
And so for me, it was always one of them things is whatever I dreamed I could do or whatever I wanted to do, they always supported me. And I can remember my first business venture being as early as about, I want to say about 9 years old. I had took the opportunity. We had a cookie lady that was ended up being sick in the
Okay.
neighborhood. So I had took that opportunity to take her clients and her sales. So I had convinced my dad to take me to Gordon's Food Services to
Okay.
go buy these candy and different stuff like that. And he had set up the candy stand in my room, and kids could come to my bedroom window and buy candy. So, and I've also watched, my mother and my father, they owned properties. They used to own real estate back in California, apartment complexes. They
Wow.
owned clothing stores, different things like that. My dad used to sell jewelry and different things. So I grew up always seeing the hustle and always seeing the entrepreneurship
Right.
spirit. and on my dad's side of the family, it's quite a few successful entrepreneurs. So I had that balance of my father's side, which was kind of like the hustlers, and then my mother's side, which was really into the church and the religious aspect and the family aspect. So I had a good balance of both. And then I
Gotcha.
also had them, which was is important as a parent and as a child to not only hear what your parents are preaching and what your parents are saying, but to actively see them doing it.
Right.
And I was blessed to see that. And they provided me with a ton of opportunities growing up, from especially being in the community that we was in. And I think
Yep.
that's important to know, is that the community that we're in and the opportunities that I was afforded aren't always given to kids. And my mom and my dad made a conscious effort to make sure that I was exposed to different things. Like my first time traveling internationally was, I think I was like 12 years old. I went to
Really?
Paris and London and Germany. I had went over there for like a month to stay with my aunt, who her husband was in the service.
Okay. Okay.
So, and they would send me off to California and New York and different things like that. So, although I was confined into the poverty of where we were,
Right.
I was afforded opportunities that was extended to me through family members and through my parents, kind of like, uh, making sure that I was cultured.
Yeah, for sure. And it seemed like, yeah, you definitely grew up with a just rich experiences going out of the country. Again, I didn't even go out really outside of what I would consider the state until high school, and that was in California. So being able to go out of the country and man, just be exposed to, a parent owning real estate and being involved in different businesses. Seems like, from the time you were little with the cookie company, you always had that entrepreneur spirit. So I guess as you were coming up and then now you're about to graduate high school and now it's time to go into college, was it just always understood that, okay, you're going to further your education at a college or a university, especially since in your case, you were an entrepreneur and then your parents, or at least your dad, he, appeared to be an entrepreneur and that they both own real estate and things like that. Why not go that route? Or what was the decision, I should say, in terms of going into the academic side of things with school, as opposed to just saying, okay, the heck with this school stuff at this point. I'm gonna go full-time entrepreneur and make it happen with that.
I think it was more so the goals that I had for myself, because my mother and father were always supportive in whatever it was that I wanted to do.
Okay.
But at the time, when I was entering school, I thought I wanted to be a obstetrician gynecologist,
Okay.
and that's kind of like how I ended up going into college. So when I graduated high school, I had you pretty much applied to every college there was in the state of Michigan. I didn't want to leave out of Michigan,
Okay.
and I chose to go to Michigan State.
Gotcha.
And part of Michigan, the reason for Michigan State was like the campus was beautiful, the vibe was great,
Sure.
and it was a lot of us there. I had
Yep.
went into a university of Michigan. I was like, I'm still a little hood around the edges, so this might not work for me. So I ended up deciding to go to Michigan State with the intentions of starting off going into pre med.
Okay.
And if you've been to Michigan State and different stuff like that, so I made it into I think it was my sophomore going into my junior year that I had did all the classes and stuff like that. And I remember as clear as day, I was in inorganic chemistry and I had studied for so hard on this test. And when I got there in the class and I looked at the test, it might as well have been in another language.
Really?
And I left out of that class and I went and changed my major. And that was the epiphany that I had. I was like, I'm one of those people that's naturally gifted, and I work hard. I got a work ethic that's unmatched. So I was like,
Right.
whatever I decide to do, I don't feel that it's going to take me 8 years to acquire what it's going to take to go through the doctor route. And I was
Right.
like, when I started analyzing stuff, I was like, you know what? Sign me up for the fastest way to get up out of here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever
Yeah.
credits transfer over, let me go ahead and get that and get to going, because I'm over it. So um, with college, I finished college in 4 years.
Okay.
So yeah, so I was in and out of there. I was like, okay, ain't no reason for these credits to go to waste.
Right.
But I know this ain't for me.
So what did you ended up, graduating with? What type of degree? Because I know had hopes at some point as being a doctor, and I think that's important because it seems like a lot of, uh, I mean, I know personally at least 5 to 10 people, women specifically, where they had aspirations of being a doctor going into college, but for one reason or another, it just didn't work out. And now and unfortunately, a lot of them at this point are still, just trying to find themselves. But it seems like when obviously you have kind of made that successful transition. So I guess maybe my question is, what did you end up graduating with, I, and then I guess we'll get to that second part as we go on in terms of being able to make that successful transition from okay, not being a doctor, the realization of not being a doctor, and then being able to still have success in life doing a number of other things.
So when I got to my counselor or my advisor, and we crunched the credits and which ones could transfer over without me having to repeat class, not repeat classes, but redo stuff or
Right.
the tracks. The best one that came out was communications.
Okay. Okay.
And it was good for me because I enjoyed the classes, and it wasn't so much the journalism side of communications,
Yep.
but it was the business side of communications that a lot of people don't realize that that plays a huge part in being successful, running a successful company,
Yeah.
organizations, and different things like that. And it was learning these processes that are in play to help improve communication and different things that I was learning in these classes. So it kind of like worked in my favor, and it was also something that I've been able to utilize quite a bit. That a
Okay.
lot of people, when they get a communications degree, they usually much go towards the media side of communications or the
Right.
broadcasting journalism side, and not so much the other side that's available that a lot of people may not even know.
So and getting that communications degree, did you just always think, hey, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur, so it doesn't matter? Because I mean, my personal philosophy is going to college. If you're going to go to college, it should be worthwhile in terms of getting a degree that, for whatever reason, whether you're going to do, uh, whether it's a law degree or engineering degree. I guess law degree is a graduate school, but engineering degree, some type of, maybe science degree, STEM degree, whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
I would maybe say, okay, if you're going to go to college, do that as opposed to maybe communications or something like that. But at that point, was it like, hey man, just get me up out of here because I'm going to do this entrepreneur thing and it doesn't matter anyway? So I guess that's the first question. And then secondly, if you had to do it all over again, would you even go to college at all, or would you just start off with just entrepreneurship, especially knowing what you know in hindsight?
So I absolutely agree with you, and that's what I preach to people currently
Okay.
is that if you're gonna go to college for something that's gonna pay you.
Right.
Other than that, you're wasting your time. You can go
Absolutely.
for one of the STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Um, Other than that, it's a waste of time and it's a
Right.
waste of your money
Yep.
because at the end of the day, you're going to accumulate no matter what. College is expensive and you're going to accumulate debt unless you got parents that's paying for it.
Yep.
And you still don't want to put yourself in that predicament to where when you graduate, you could have gotten ahead with a technical
Sure.
degree or a trade,
Yep.
and then getting way more money than the 4 or 5 years that you spent. The other side to it is that I do understand my college experience is one of those things where college experience is unmatched and is one of them things that is best to experience it coming out of high school,
Yep.
because as you get older, is the vibe changes,
For sure.
um, and it's one of them things where my friends have been my friends. You make lifelong friends in college and
Yep.
different connections and different stuff
Yep.
like that, and it also helps you become an adult. Like
Yep.
you grow up in college quick, but
No.
the other side to that is like um, me going back and getting my master's degree and now comparing the two from when I was getting my bachelor's degree, you I definitely feel like I can accomplish anything now with my going back with the mind frame that I have now that I didn't have at that age. So it's a two-sided sword almost. But
Right.
I definitely wouldn't recommend going to college for anything unless it's something that you're specializing in.
For sure. And it seems like for the most part we agree because I always say the three things that you're going to get out of college is accountability, which you're saying, hey, you have to grow up quick in college. It's going to be networking. Again, much like you, most of the people I communicate with in on a daily basis are from college, whether it's undergrad or law school. And then I guess that third component is going to college to get a degree that matters. So that I think if you have those three things in mind, I guess, in going to college, I think you are a lot further ahead than most people who go to college and don't they I guess you may grow up quick, but they don't network effectively or intentionally. Then their degree path is maybe not what it should be. So they may have one out of the three as opposed to all three. But I think if you going to college, if you can get all three of those things, you're going to be set up a lot. No, you're going to be a lot further ahead than most people who end up graduating college. So you're saying that you ended up graduating with your bachelor's in communications, and then you went back to grad school. So what was the mindset there? What was the thought there as far as going back to grad school?
So actually, once I graduated college, I went into the Navy, and so
Oh, so you
I,
graduated college and then went into the Navy before grad school.
yeah. So what I did was, my mind frame was, and this is how I ended up in the military. Was like, okay, the military gave me all this, or the government gave me all this money. The government about to pay all this money back. So,
Hold on. Oh, because you do get the, I forget what they're called, with the GI
you get
Bill
the
or
loan
something?
repayment program.
Okay.
So, and a lot of people don't utilize it, don't know it or whatever. And so I did it based off of how much student loans I had. I think I had like 30 or 40,000. And then I looked at which branches was paying the most back and which ones had the best jobs. And at the time, like, it's a tier between of, quality of living or whatever you call it
Right.
in the military.
Yep.
And so the Army was paying back the most, of course, and then it was the Navy, and then it trickled down to the Marines. The Air Force was paying the least amount, and then I think the Coast Guard. So I was like, well, the Navy sounds like, cool.
Right.
I'll do the Navy.
Why not choose the Army since they were paying back the most?
Nah, with me, I was real because I also was looking at the requirements that it took to get into these different branches, and I'm not a runner. So that was kind of like the running. I also paid attention to where these people are stationed at, and I was like, they don't. The Navy, their ports are on the ocean. All of their stuff is, in nice locations, different things like that. Their quality of living is a whole lot better. They don't have you sleeping out in tents for the most part. So I was like, I could do a boat. So so that's how I ended up actually joining the military after I got out of college. And I was like, because I had already knew, like, the degree I had to find something to supplement it with.
Right.
And what I found when I got out of college, or when I was transitioning out of college, was like a lot of these places that want to hire you, they want you to have experience. And it's like, I've been in college for years. I can't acquire experience and be in school at the same time.
For sure.
So that's kind of how I came up with my strategy and my game plan to join the military after college.
So then you're in the military. Do you serve? How long do you serve in the military?
So that's going to be based off of what contract you sign. So with me, I had signed a 6-year contract that guaranteed me E4 after a certain I reached a certain point in my training. And so with the college degree, that had already gave me E3 status automatically.
Got you.
So I went into boot camp as an E3. By the time I hit the end of my training, I was an E4. And then I made E5 in less than 2 years. And the ranking structure of the Navy is test-based for the most part. And so I'm just exceptionally good at taking tests. So I made it my first time up taking a test with a 12% chance.
So you're talking about like a physical test or like a written test?
A written test.
Okay.
It's a test based off of knowledge of the job that you are required to do.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, so it seemed like you definitely went into it with the plan in terms of, okay, the where are we standing at, to what's the physical aspect of this job, to who getting paid the most. You thinking about all this as you're going through it, as opposed to just kind of signing up and not knowing what you're getting yourself into.
Exactly. And that part was a game changer for me, because even down to the job that I picked and what benefits came with it, versus them just giving me a job. And I still got a little messed up, but it worked in my favor because I graduated with a communications degree. They was like, you could do interior communications electrician because it had communications up in it.
Right. Okay.
And so I'm like, all right, cool. Sound good. And so I'm looking at the job description. I'm like, this don't entail nothing with communications at all with my degree. Like this is an electrician that you got me signing up for. But because I had tested so well on the app, so they ended up positioning me as an electrician, basically.
Okay.
And it worked in my favor because it was one of the jobs that kind of like translates over into the civilian sector.
Gotcha.
And I was able to learn a trade and become efficient in several different systems that this
particular job entailed.
Okay. So then how long did you actually stay in the Navy? And then after that, did you decide to go to graduate school? I'm assuming after you served your time in the Navy or after you were, pretty much done with the Navy?
No, so a lot of people don't realize what I did was when you sign up for the military, you automatically get either post 9/11 or you get the Montgomery GI Bill. With
Okay.
me, I didn't qualify for or for Montgomery GI Bill because I believe because I already had a degree, but I was qualified for post 9/11.
Got you.
The military also has tuition assistance. So while you're in the military, you can go to school for free. And then they give you a stipend. So what I did was I had them pay my student loans back from my bachelor's degree. While I
Okay.
was in, I started taking classes for my master's degree.
Okay. So you were doing
So
that while you were simultaneously in the military in terms of taking classes for your I got you, got you.
yeah,
Okay. And I'm
and
assuming that they're paying for this as well?
yeah, so they're
Mm,
paying for it. And the other side to it that people don't realize is that they're accommodating me for it. So when I got classes, they let me
yeah,
cut out of work early, or when I got homework to do, they let me do it at work. And they was because it's one of them type of cultures where they encourage you to go to school. They encourage you to further your education and do all of
right.
this different stuff that people just don't take advantage of. They don't utilize it while they in.
That's a
But
good
the
point.
military has a ton of services that people while you're in, you're eligible for. Before you go in, you're eligible for.
Right.
So you definitely need to know how to strategize and capitalize on all of this stuff.
And do you think that your entrepreneur mindset and the way you think about things helped out with that as opposed to just going through it and just kind of figuring things out as you go and more having more of a plan? Do you think the background and just kind of how you're wired with the entrepreneurship helped out with that? Or do you think anybody, as long as they kind of just sit down and kind of map this stuff out, they can be able to kind of navigate things effectively?
No, you definitely have to be ambitious, and I think that side of everything, and the entrepreneurship side, and the skill sets that come with that,
Yeah.
is what allowed me to be able to seek out these resources and map out everything, and kind of like see because it wasn't a cakewalk for me. I had a lot of obstacles and a lot of different things that I was able to do going
Right.
into the military while I was in the military and even transitioning out that people was like, you're not gonna be able to do, or you can't do that, or that's not gonna happen, or this. And I've always been able to be like, you got to be able to face adversity
Yep.
and don't let it discourage you, no matter who it is that's telling you something. So the entrepreneurship and always having that I can do whatever it is that I'm trying to do
Right.
spirit
Yep.
definitely allowed me to navigate through the military a lot more successful than most people have.
Got you. Got you. So then you get to the point where you have, I'm assuming that you graduate with your graduate degree while you're still in the military, or are you out of the military at that point?
So I finished about 80% of the course,
Okay.
probably about 90% of the course I finished while I was in the military. I would have been able to complete it all, but I had to do a 9-month deployment.
Got you.
And that was on the tail end of my enlistment.
Where
And
did you deploy to?
so I got deployed to I was basically out to sea, but we would hit ports up. So I had hit up Dubai, Bahrain,
Ah,
Greece, Croatia.
nice.
I think that was it because we went to Dubai about 3, 4 times while we was in on deployment.
Okay.
And I might be missing another place. But yeah, so we kind of like you be out on the ocean and then you pull in for a couple of days.
Yep.
Because the ship that I was on is an aircraft carrier, so that's the largest ship that they have in the Navy. Um, and they pull out or they pull into the port for a couple of days, and then you're back out to sea for the rest of the month.
So it seems like most of your time you were out at sea, but you will occasionally pull in to the port for a couple of days and kind of hang out, in whatever city that you or country that you were pulling up to then.
Yeah, that's how it works. And then, depending on the platform that you're on,
Yeah.
and determine how frequently you pull in or how frequently you don't pull in.
Got you. Got you. So then I guess when you're deployed, are you still able to go to school or take classes online, or is it like, no, we're going to put a pause on this because I have to deploy to, wherever I'm deployed to?
Now you can, but it just is difficult because when you're on a ship, they do have Wi-Fi and all of these capabilities, but at
Yep.
any given time they can shut it down for different
Yeah, that
they're
makes
called
sense.
conditions and different stuff like that. So if we can't send any comms out or anything like that. They'll shut Wi-Fi down. They'll shut. You can't get on Facebook. You can't get on the internet or anything like that. And then it also runs slow because of, the
Yep.
situation that you're in. So it isn't ideal to be in
Right.
classes, especially if you need constant communication, which most times you do online.
Yep.
But it's possible. I've seen people who did it, and professors who worked with them because they know the nature of the job that they're in.
For sure. For sure. So then, are you so I'm assuming that once you got back from deployment is when you finished from the graduate standpoint, or then so I guess is that accurate as far as you finishing up once you got back from deployment then?
Nope. So after I got back from deployment, I ended up pregnant with twins.
Oh.
So I had the twins, and then that because I was actually prepping in deployment to go officer. So I had my letters of recommendation all set to go. I had my package ready because I was getting ready to go in for intel to
Yep.
become an intel officer. I even had a letter from the admiral of the strike group, which is a really big accomplishment.
For sure.
And so what happened is when I found out I was pregnant, and not only pregnant with twins, I had to make a decision on whether I was going to continue my military career or
Wow.
if I was going to get out.
Do
And
they
so,
let you just get out when you have like kids? Is that like an option, or is it would
no,
it?
I was at the end of my enlistment.
Oh,
So I
okay,
was at
gotcha.
the end of my 6 years, and I was in a process of either having to re-enlist to stay in
Yep.
or transition out. So it
Okay.
all kind of like just like kind of like fell in line for me, I guess.
Okay.
So in that time frame, I had already had my son, who's currently 9 now. And I was like, I don't want to be that mom. I'm one of those type of people. I'm very family oriented. I
For
like to
sure.
be, catch the moments and different stuff like that. And it
Yep.
was a lot of firsts that I had missed with him that I wasn't willing to sacrifice any longer, not with, adding 3 more kids or
Yeah,
2
for
more
sure.
kids.
For sure.
And then so that's when I decided that I will go ahead and transition out of the military
Okay.
and become a civilian.
Okay. Okay. So
And in that
then
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
And
Go
that
ahead.
time of me transitioning is when I started picking up my classes, and I actually just finished the degree. I want to say that was last year. I went on and finished it because I was by that time I was like, okay, I think I had like 1 year left to finish it before I would have had to start the program over.
So then I guess since it seems like you're technically out of the Navy when you finished the degree, do they still pay for it, or did you have to pay out of your pocket for the I guess the portion that you took when you were out of the Navy?
So that side was actually covered by the post 9/11 that I
Okay.
had.
Oh,
So
nice.
the military paid for the whole degree.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then on
yeah, yeah.
top of that, they gave me a monthly stipend for being in school. So I was
So
basically getting paid to go to school.
no, nice,
Uh,
nice, nice.
yeah, so I made sure I utilized almost everything that
Yeah.
I could find to utilize while I was in the military.
Like you said, they gave you all these loans. They're gonna pay for them
They're gonna
back,
pay
and
them off, and I'm about to, and then my whole thing was like, get out the military what you can, because they're gonna get what they can out of you.
yeah. I mean,
So,
and I think that's just life in general. Hopefully, it's not as kind of just black and white like that. But I think any relationship has to be mutually beneficial.
mhm.
But you don't want to, I guess, like get the feeling of you're going to be used up and then kind of spit out. Which I guess sometimes whether it's professional sports or maybe even the military, you have that feeling where it's like, okay, yeah, we don't have any use for you, so kind of kick you to the curb. So now you're at the civilian lifestyle. I guess what's next at that point? Are you because you hear a lot of stories of people getting out of the army, especially if they've been deployed and they're used to being at war and things like that, and they have no clue of what's next. And I was actually watching an interview earlier today where it was a guy. He was like a sniper. I forget his name, but he said that civilian life is a lot tougher than being overseas and being at war, because at war all he had to do was focus on killing, whereas at home he has to focus on bills, his family, his kids, his wife, all those different things and things that he perceived as being not controllable. Whereas when he was overseas at war, he was able to control, or at least to a degree, who he killed and things like that. So I guess your transition out, do you have that same like, oh man, what the hell am I going to do next? Or it's like, no, I always had a plan on what's next for me.
No, because you absolutely right. It can be a struggle for people, and it's a lot of people that it has been a struggle for that, especially those who go in straight out of high school that didn't have
Yeah,
any type of world life experiences. Because like with me going from college, I was used to like having to be a civilian.
For sure.
So I didn't have to learn how to be a civilian because I had been one previously. I knew how to, acquire a job. I knew what, the different things. So for me, my transition wasn't as difficult as others. And then I had already kind of like um prepared myself. And then at the time, my husband was also, he had retired.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so he had retired and he had already, pretty much started the transition, and it allowed me the opportunity to kind of like, I used that first year. I had the twins, and I stayed at home that first year and raised, my three kids
Okay.
while he worked. And so it just gave me the opportunity to like, okay, decide what it is that I want to do next and kind of like go after it. And I decided after they turned one, I realized like this stay at home mom life isn't for me.
Right.
Like
Right.
I'm
Right.
tired of talking to kids. I need an adults to talk to. I need to interact with other people. And I was getting restless.
Got you.
So it didn't take me long to find a job at all. I applied for two jobs and I got both of them, but the one that I decided to go with was I worked for Comcast and I was
Got you.
a head end technician. And it's like the highest level of a technician that they have. They have like the people that come into your homes, which is the install techs. They have the maintenance techs that go out. They're the people that you'll see on the, the cable lines and out there with the
Okay.
bucket trucks and stuff like that. And then you have the head end techs, which work in the hubs that controls all the electronic equipment that, is sent to your home.
Got you.
And I was one of those. And I was also the only female in the nation that held that position.
Wow. The only female in the nation. Wow.
So
White or
yeah,
black, or was it? Was it
only female, period. It was,
period? Wow. Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Do you know why is that? That seems like just an odd thing that
It's the
traditionally not.
skill set. A
Okay.
lot of females don't have the skill set that is required for it, and that skill set is what I acquired in the military, dealing with I guess the telecommunications, the
Got you.
television, and network and all of that stuff. Learning how dealing with fiber optics, dealing with
Got you.
transmitters, receivers, that type of thing is uh, I wouldn't say specialized skill set, but it's not something that you're going to typically get that I was acquired from the military.
Right, right, for sure, for sure. So you feel as though like the military having that background and training that really helped out as far as that career or position went.
Absolutely, because
Okay.
based off of me getting in, and that was the thing, a lot of people was upset at me in that position, and I later on realized that that position typically takes 17 to 20 years to acquire
Really?
within Comcast. So when you got somebody like me coming in off the streets, acquiring that position, it was a lot of people that was. I literally had people pull up to me and was like, "I've never seen a female technician. I just wanted to see if you existed, or I
Right.
wanted to make sure it
I
was
see.
really you." And it was because the they the way that they have it structured and how to obtain that job, it was almost like everybody's like, somebody has to die to acquire that position. So from
Okay.
coming in off
Gotcha.
the streets
Yeah.
and being as young as I was, because there was a lot of older men in that
Sure.
position, they were definitely trying to figure out how I got there.
Got you. Got you. So then you're in this position. How long are you actually in that position? And then is it like, oh, okay, you have to do something more? I guess how was that like thought process as far as, okay, man, this is more out here for me to do. I need to be doing something different.
So I was with Comcast about, I want to say 2 years. And that
Okay.
first year was kind of like getting the idea and the feel for the company and different stuff like that. And the position I had, it was a great position. Like I can't complain about that at all because I was blessed to um pretty much, long as you check into your hub, which they have them all over the city, and you'll be assigned 2 or 3 different hubs. I didn't have any supervisor that I had to check in with every day. You pretty much set your own work that you're going to do. You have these goals that you have to meet, and as long as you meet your matrix and different stuff like that. So it was really like I was able to, the freedom that I needed from a job, I completely had. I had a company vehicle, company phone, company
Gotcha.
computer. And I pretty much, as long as I checked in my hub and I checked out, I determined what it was that I did for the day. So it gave me the flexibility that I needed also to be able to branch off into other things that I wanted to do, as long as I was, meeting my metrics there.
Okay. Okay.
And so with that first year, I kind of got a feel for how the company was, what was expected out of me, and different things like that. And then coming into that second year is when I started planning my, I guess, exit strategy, because they were kind of, it felt like they were kind of like trying to groom me for management positions. And I had the director coming to talk to me, and they was putting me in these different rooms. And
Yep.
I was like, I'm not really big on building other people's dreams when I got my own.
Right. There you go.
So I was like, it's cool and different stuff like that. But I knew that it wasn't a long-term retirement plan for me, and that it was something else that I was going to be doing. And so I ended up transitioning out of that, while I was simultaneously doing that and running a trucking company that I had started up with me and my sister.
So you were doing both of them kind of at the same time. Then you were, obviously seems like that Comcast position, as you said, gave you the flexibility to do other things. So you had started up this trucking company. And I guess out of curiosity, and when you hear about the trucking company, that seems to be an industry that's kind of dominated or more so ran by men. So as a woman, I guess what was your angle as far as like getting into that industry and not caring maybe what you're seeing as far as the truck drivers or uh I guess the men that typically I guess dominate the industry as far as at least what you see.
So the trucking industry, it ain't for the faint of heart, and you gotta have a backbone. And like, we jumped into the industry with no knowledge at all. We didn't
Okay.
know anything about nothing, and we jumped. Well, it initially started. We have a brother that drives semi trucks, and it was supposed to be, he was supposed to be kind of like helping us along and different stuff like that. And in the process of us starting a company, he basically found out that he's not driving for us and helping us, like he goes ghost on us. So now we're stuck in the middle of, we have a brand new trucking company. We just purchased a truck, we have our authority and everything like that, and we having to figure things out on the fly. And so what I did is I started out reaching out to people and resources, and I got on Facebook and Facebook groups and different stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I kind of like had to figure it out, because here we are with a business that we don't have any idea what we doing.
So hold on, you guys purchased the truck and actually like, okay, we're gonna do this without any because at least when I got into the real estate business, I had read a few books. I had talked to a few people who were, within that industry, at least to get the ins and outs and at least an idea of what it was about and the things that I can look forward to. But did you guys do none of that? It was just like, hey, let's go purchase a truck and let's
No, we
get
had
to it.
did market analysis. We did all of that stuff, and
Okay,
we knew what
okay.
we was up against and different things like that. And
Yep.
we knew the basics of everything. But like with any business or industry that you get in, you don't know what you up against until you actually in the trenches of things.
That's
So
true. That's true.
it was things that we kind of had dependent on my brother to be able to help guide us through, that we didn't have a safety net, is
Gotcha.
what it was. It was like, this is us and we got to figure this out. We ain't got nobody else to depend on.
Right, for sure. So he
Um,
didn't he didn't come through at all, it sound like.
Bruh, when I tell you, yeah, I just started talking back to him this year, and that was that was after I had to get some stuff off my chest.
Right.
But yeah, he basically did us like how typical drivers do.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't find out that he wasn't gonna work for us and help us, or us work together and drive for us, until the day we found out on a three-way phone call, trying to figure out how to get insurance on the car. We had called one of his friends, and his friend was like, "Oh, so you deciding you're gonna work with your sisters and stuff for the family now?" He's like, "That's good." We didn't have any, we didn't get a heads up or nothing. And after we had bought the truck, and because we had bought it in South Georgia and had to drive it up, and he drove it up for us.
Okay.
After that, we didn't hear anything else from him.
Really? So I guess what why not just say, hey, man, I can answer some questions, but I'm not, I'm doing this over here as far as the driving that I'm doing. I'm not going to be driving for you guys.
And that's a question you're gonna have to take up with him.
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Okay, so you guys obviously you guys have this truck and now you have to find a driver. So you're saying you're reaching out to Facebook, different Facebook groups, and I'm assuming at some point you find at least a driver. I would imagine your first driver for this truck.
Yep. Shout out to Mr. Pittman. Actually, his name Johnny Pittman. He from Muskegon. But
Okay.
yep, our mother had put us in contact with him. And I think the thing is too is these people here, a lot of people always talking about what they're gonna do and different
Yep.
stuff like that. and it's different from actually seeing people doing it. And
Yeah,
so
for
when we
sure.
originally had reached out to him, he kind of like blew us off a little bit.
Like, y'all
But
not about to do this. Y'all
yeah,
just
like
talking.
y'all not serious. And then so next time when we call him, like, look, we got this truck, we got this authority, we need to find a driver, this, that, whatever. So he kind of like took us under his wing and he kind of mentored us and helped us out. And he found a driver for us, our first driver, Mr. West. And it was just like a learning curve from there. Like I had never learned how to do, I didn't know how to dispatch a truck. I didn't know nothing about hours of service. I didn't know nothing about none of it.
Right. So then
I,
how is it? So I'm assuming that Mr. Pittman, he's already driving a truck. He already has
yeah.
his truck and he has his own thing going on, but he's assuming essentially doing a role that I guess your brother was supposed to be doing as far as kind of help you guys uh get the lay of the land. And so now at that point, how is it working? Because I would imagine like you said, you're not driving these trucks. You have, I'm assuming typically men would drive these trucks. So how is it kind of communicating with the men? Or are you like older or younger than like how like what's because I
No.
would imagine, I guess from my own perspective, if you have like this older, like I guess what I think of these big truck drivers, and then you have maybe a younger woman or a female, they can kind of maybe blow you off or not take you as serious. Was it that type of dynamic, or and if so, how were you able to navigate that?
So with me, I've always been fortunate enough to be, I'm respectful.
Okay.
And so because Mr. West was like 70 or something years old. He was older.
Older.
And
Wow.
so I call him Mr. West. He always told us, you ain't got to call me Mr. West.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
I just, and the same thing with Mr. Pittman. They was always like, you don't have to call me Mr. Pittman, but it was just like that level of respect.
Right.
And with that, I never found it difficult. And I actually, one of the things that our company that I prided myself on was that we always had more drivers than we had trucks.
Oh, really?
Always had people that were looking to come work for us, away
Wow.
for a position to open up for to come work with us because of how we treated our drivers,
Wow.
and just how we ran our company. And that was one of the things that we was blessed with, because I always had people who had sitting trucks. Somebody always had trucks sitting because they couldn't find a driver,
Right.
and we never had that. But it was due to the humility that me and my sister both have, our professionalism. And at the end of the day, these are people that's risking their lives to
Yeah,
help
for
support
sure.
your dream. So you
Sure.
definitely have to have a level of respect and humility towards them.
Okay. No, that makes sense. So then seems like with Mr. West driving a truck, this at least this is going decent enough to the point where you're like, okay, it's time to get another truck. So was it based off of, okay, you guys thought that you guys can handle a different truck just based on how business was going, or was it like, hey man, we're not making no money, we ain't there need to get, because I know we were talking offline and you were saying you need at least what I think 3 trucks to be able to start making real money.
Mhm.
So was the the thought of getting additional trucks based off of the money aspect of it, or was it just business was just going so good?
It was a little bit of both, because we
Okay.
had actually landed a setup to where we were supplying drivers and we didn't even have to use trucks. So they were basically paying us to contract drivers out. So it allowed us to accumulate money faster.
Okay. What do you mean
And
when you
then
say
so
contracting drivers out?
so just to put it in context, we started the company in November 2019.
Okay,
That was right before the pandemic hit.
for sure.
So once the pandemic hit and we're full in the pandemic, of course, nothing's moving but freight.
Right.
And so it was a demand for, highest bidder will move your stuff for you, highest price. And so it was companies that was faced with, they needed their freight moved, or they had a driver but they needed a second driver to, complete their
Oh,
loads.
got you.
And so we were kind of like contracting drivers out and using their equipment to get their loads moved. And one of the places they delivered to, like Burger King and Golden Corral and different stuff like that. And they had a high driver turnover rate. And so what we did was basically increased our drivers' pay and made it beneficial for them to take these loads,
Yep.
and positioned it like that. And so it allowed us to create our, build our revenue up faster. And then with that, we realized, like, okay, once this is done, we're going to need trucks, because our drivers aren't going to have any trucks to jump into.
Right. So were
And
these
so
the drivers that you guys were contracting out? Are these your drivers, or are you guys just finding them and saying, okay, hey, such and such has a load that they need moved, that essentially working as a middleman to put them with other people who needed their loads moved?
no, these were our drivers.
Okay, okay, got
So
you,
so we ended up hiring on more drivers,
got you,
so that we can, cover these lanes for this company.
yeah,
Um, and then we had a truck that was leased on to us. It was basically someone who had gotten to a bad business deal prior,
got you,
and the company had took all their money. And so they were paying all of this stuff. So it was like a good faith effort for them to, like, okay, I'll take your truck underneath our company. We'll run it for you, until you get, you know, right side up, and then you start your own company.
got you,
So we helped them out. But the other ones, they were pretty much our drivers that we were contracting out.
got you. Okay, okay, and
Yeah.
that helped you, like you said, build the revenue faster.
Yeah. And then so we went out and we got a second truck, and we got that truck, and the engine ended up going out.
Mm,
And when the engine goes out on these trucks, you're looking at about $15,000 to $20,000.
okay,
So get this truck, the engine go out. So then we go and acquire another truck. So that truck is running. So now we're at two trucks. So now that those trucks is running and stuff, um, so we're technically at three trucks. So we're at two trucks and a lease truck.
got you.
And then we just, slowly started building our fleet up.
So
And
then what was the like at what was the most? How many trucks did you guys have? What was the most trucks you guys had at any given time?
five.
Okay, okay, wow, 5. And then I guess if you don't mind me asking, what was like when you have 5 trucks, because I know you said you're not really making money until you have at least 3 trucks. What type of revenue are you generating off of 5 trucks on a monthly basis?
So I couldn't remember the monthly basis because it'll vary, but over the year, I think that year we had made like 2.8 million.
Okay, okay, got you,
Yeah.
got you.
Yeah. So that's how much we had revenue, or that was net.
Yep. Oh, that's so hold
Or
on. So
gross. That was gross.
gross.
So
Okay,
net,
okay,
I think net ended up being about, I want to say 80 by the time you trickle down, fuel expense, maintenance expense, driver expense, um, I may just the operating costs overall. So that was like the take home. So um that's kind of like how we started analyzing and stuff. And I'm like, that's not a lot to be taken home based off of the amount of work you're doing on a day in and day out basis.
yeah, I was gonna say it seems like I mean, obviously the revenue generated was there, but when you were talking about the take home,
Yeah,
especially based on the stuff that you guys had to go through, it's like, man, there has to be a better
it
way.
ain't worth it. Exactly. So my sister, after the first year and a half, my sister was ready to tap out. She was like, I'm over this. There's other ways to make money, because she's an independent insurance adjuster. Give me one
Okay.
second.
No, yeah, no problem.
So yeah, so my sister was ready to tap out. She was like, okay, she did a cost analysis. She didn't, check this out. She like, sis, no, I'm good. I'm tapping out. And I'm like,
Right.
I'm the little engine that could, because the other side to it was that I was able to find loads and freight that you typically couldn't find.
Okay.
The rates that I was getting for stuff, you weren't finding that anywhere. So I was like, I'm, as far as like a trucking company, I'm finding high paying things.
Yep.
And just to put it into perspective, we was getting $1,500 a day just to move Dollar General loads right around us in Georgia, right around where we are.
Yeah, so you're not even
Um,
going outside of
yeah,
the
we're
state
not
or
even
outside
going
of the
out of the
town.
state.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
We're maybe doing 200 miles a day.
Okay,
And then
okay,
the other stuff that we were tied to, that we were supplying just the driver for, we was getting $1,500 a day per driver, and I was doing about 3 to 4 drivers a day.
okay, okay.
So
And
so that's
you never drove. You always had a driver. It wasn't like you were behind the wheel driving.
Nope, I don't have a CDLs at all.
Okay,
So
okay.
we always had drivers. Um, thank you. We always had drivers. Give me one second.
Yep, no problem.
But yeah, so we always had drivers to help run our company.
Okay. Okay.
And so like when we doing this and we, paying attention to the expenses and all of the different stuff like that and the revenue that's being generated, we like, and I'm like, nah, it's we can do it. It is that whatever, because we listening to all of these people talk about all of this money they making and all of this stuff and they doing. I'm like, okay, we making them numbers, but we're not seeing that profit. Like, and that's when I realized like this trucking industry is a bunch of smoke and mirrors. And
Oh,
so after we hit year 3, we sat down and we was like, we tired. We like, it ain't a profitable business enough to sustain, and it's way too much work than it is a payout in. There's way more stuff that you could do with your time that we could see way better money from.
and I see people who are getting their CDLs and things like that. Are the drivers themselves making more money just kind of based on the going rate at that point? So in other words, if you were a driver as opposed to, and I think maybe you explained this as far as the owner operator, I'm not sure exactly how that worked, but are the people driving, do they make more money just kind of based on the market rate for drivers at this point?
I would say if the driver makes more money as working for a company than they
Okay.
do trying to be an owner operator.
Yep.
That's my take on it.
Okay.
Because a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that people don't realize, or when you own your own truck, different things like that, is you're responsible for everything.
Right.
You're responsible for the insurance on it. You're
Yep.
responsible for the fuel for it. You're responsible for the maintenance on it. And all of that stuff adds up. The insurance on one truck alone a month was almost $2,000.
Really?
Yeah. And the fuel coming in at about $1,000 a week. So, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You, as a company driver, you don't care about none of that stuff.
Right. Right.
The fuel, the company paying for the fuel, the company paying for this and
Yep.
different things. And that was something that I also realized too later on down the line, is that um these drivers beg to take better care of the equipment when it's theirs.
That makes
They're
sense.
not they're not so quick to go run up a maintenance bill that's this amount of money, or they're
Yep.
more willing to go shop around for prices
For sure.
when they're responsible for paying for it versus when you're responsible.
Okay. No, and that makes perfect sense. Unfortunately, it doesn't help you as the owner who, I mean, I just think that's like just natural when it's something that's yours. You I guess pay a little bit more close attention to detail on it as opposed to when it's not yours and it's like kind of whatever.
Hmm.
So then, okay, so you get to this point where you guys are 3 years in. You're saying that, oh man, this trucking industry is not what it's cracked up to be. So then I guess what's the thought process as far as, okay, we got to do something different? What are the things on the table at that point? The options that you have as far as, okay, the industries that you're going to get into.
And so, because we just dissolved the company this December.
Okay, so it is
So
relatively fresh.
yeah, this is relatively fresh. So this December is when we was like, okay, because we started trying to allow the drivers to take over the trucks and different stuff like that, and like try to do a soft exit.
Yep.
But that didn't work out either. So we was like, you know what, we just shutting everything down, and we shut it down, and it was still better than what it is now. And to put it into perspective, when we were currently running loads, we were getting $2,200 to run a load that is currently going for $1,200 now.
Really?
So in the matter from December to now, it was like we probably picked the best time to get out of the
Yeah,
industry,
that's what it
because a lot
sounds
of
like.
people don't realize like fuel costs is still high for trucks, but the rates and stuff that they're paying to move this freight has dropped astronomically.
Right.
And so it was like, we knew, okay, it's time to cut our losses. It's time to stop the bleeding and move to something different.
Right.
But with that 3 years of building that revenue and the different things, when you got bank statements and you got $100,000 a month coming in and different stuff like
Yep.
that, it's easier to secure funding and different things. So we kind of like, we took our, took everything while everything was good and built all of that up and was like, all right, we about to position on to something different now that we've accumulated the position for the business.
Right.
And so we're still trying to kind of like figure out what we're going to do, but we now have the capital to start our next venture and whatever it is that where we're deciding to go.
Okay.
But I was doing that, but I also had while I was doing the trucking company, I was also starting up another company with the home health care.
Okay.
So I was kind of doing it simultaneously, the trucks along with this. And so that's kind of like where I've pivoted towards now is more home healthcare based things, and less uh less stuff that less, I guess, businesses that require you, it's at the fate of other people's hands how successful you are.
No, I mean that's a good point. I think, I mean, anytime you have, whether it's an online business or a business that you have, I don't want to say interactions with humans, but you don't have like a large overhead as far as having to pay people and things like that. That, I guess, that seem to be ideal these days, especially with all the online companies that you see popping up. And again, it's not like you have to pay the host of employees, and you can run pretty lean. And if you're charging a subscription and things like that, but with the home healthcare business, how does that work?
So with the home healthcare, hold on, give me 1 second.
Yep, yep.
I'm sorry.
No, you're
I
good.
got but so with the home healthcare, the way that this is like I currently am contracted right now
Okay,
with the agency, and it's almost like foster care, but I provide care for people with developmental disabilities. So they
okay,
have autism or different things like that, that I provide care for. And so you basically kind of like open up your homes to these individuals, and provide a safe place for them.
so does it have to be your home? Can you have like a separate home aside from yours that you have maybe workers kind of taken care of, or does it have to be your home where you're physically present?
No, so it's up to you, and it depend on which route that you go. Because I'm actually in the process. I went this route just to get a kind of understanding and
Right.
get the experience because I wasn't familiar with the industry at all, or
Okay.
what it would entail or intake. So I went this route to kind of get that understanding and making sure that it was something that I wanted to do before I jumped in doing it. And
Okay.
so what I am is considered a host home provider, and it's kind of like a foster home.
Okay.
But you do have where you can do private care, you could do personal care homes, and those are the homes that are set up that you have staffed. And that's currently what I'm in the process of doing with one of my properties out here now,
Okay.
is getting it up and running to have staff in to basically, I'm going to be transitioning out of this position.
Right. So are these like kids or are these adults that you? Because I would imagine that it can be kids or adults depending on the situation.
Yeah, so it depends on the situation and the circumstances. Because I have one of my clients is 19 and she goes to college. I mean, goes
Okay.
to high school still,
Okay.
and then my other client is, I want to say, 43.
Got you. Got you.
So the age definitely ranges depending on and for me, I got to choose the client that I wanted.
Well,
So
okay.
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, how do you get over the fact that you have, I guess, these, at least I would imagine at some point they become like family, or at least, more, you build more of a rapport with them over time. But having, especially when you have kids, to like introduce like these more or less strangers into like your home with your family, and was that nerve wracking at the beginning, or how did you overcome that aspect of it?
So for me, I grew up in a small house on Jackson Hill, and it was a two-bedroom, two-bath house. And I can count, I think at one point in time, it was maybe 16 people that lived in the house with us.
16?
I want to say it was like it was my mom and dad. As I swear, sometimes it felt like we was running a shelter. And so it kind of like
That's
that kind of
crazy.
mind frame, and even from my family, like I come from a huge family. Like on my mom's side,
Yep.
my grandmother had 10 kids. On my dad's side, it was 16. So it was always, people around and different things like that. And, people in the house are transitioning through, like we were always helping people.
Okay, gotcha.
Um, and so as I got older, I was I kind of transitioned to that where I was helping family all the time. And it was
Gotcha.
like you would help family and different stuff like that, and they wouldn't appreciate it or act like you owe them some and different things like that. And it was like, I've always been one of those type of people where I'm trying, I always try to help people with different things, but it got tired of helping people that didn't appreciate it. And
Gotcha.
so helping people that appreciate it, and then also my kids, because it is one of them things that it can you can be nervous, but my kids are at the age, because my twins are 5 and my oldest is 9.
Okay.
They're at the age and they can articulate themselves, and then they're very opinionated individuals. So so they are definitely like some strong-willed kids. So with the type of kids that I have, I was more so I didn't have that concern so much because
Yeah.
I knew my kids ain't going.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. For sure.
they adapt, they adjust, and they accept people, and then they're very adaptive. But it definitely was one of them things where you know I explained to them what was going on and different things. And my kids kind of like, I don't, it's not a shock factor for them on different things that,
Yeah.
they kind of like, and I like that for them that, you know, um, I is, I don't know how you explain it, but they know like they're not uh opposed to seeing me like working or,
Yeah.
um, building stuff or whatever. They just like, oh, mama into something, mama doing this now, or mama doing that now.
For
So,
sure. For sure. So then, as far as the like from the financial standpoint of it, I mean, obviously it's making money, and it seems like at least at this point, you're saying you're subcontracting, but you're kind of getting into the process to turn one of your properties so that it's doing it with staff and all that. So, what are you looking at for someone who maybe wants to get into this type of industry? What is it? I would imagine that they give you get paid per head, or maybe it's a different calculus as far as how they pay you. But I guess what can someone expect to make per I guess per person that they are taken care of in these situations?
so it varies depending on what level they are or what their
Okay.
rate is based off of the state. And then that varies depending on if you're doing Medicaid, which is what the field that I'm in, or if you're doing private care and you're setting rates, because those rates go based off of what is going on around the area. And then it also, so for the individuals that I currently have, the pay for them is $150 a day per person.
Really?
Yeah, and so it's also county specific based off of the different counties tells you how many clients you can have in your house at a time. So for me, I can only have 2 clients at a time. Well,
Okay.
they only allow 2. I can
Gotcha.
have 3, and then after 3, you have to have the house retrofitted for sprinklers and different stuff like that because it becomes it bec what do they call it? A facility. So
Gotcha. That makes
it
sense.
turns over to a facility and its other requirements that it have. But on the low end, um, that's these are high functioning clients. And so that's how much their rate is. And it's a per day rate that you receive.
So
And then the rate can increase depending on if they're wheelchair accessible, if they've got a
gotcha.
colostomy bag, or they bedridden. It The prices vary, but that's the low end of it.
So so
So
so then how do these people have a set contract time period with you, or is it just as long as you're willing to, like, I guess, welcome them or just have willing to have them at that point?
so they're pretty much in the hands of the state. So
Okay.
as long as they choose to, because they have the choice to, um if they don't like living here, they
Go
can,
somewhere else.
choose to go somewhere else,
Gotcha.
or they could choose a different provider and different things like that. So it's kind of is based off of their preference, and then you also have the right to terminate as well. So
Okay.
if this person don't work out for you, different things, you don't like how they moving,
Yeah.
you can reject your services for them.
Okay.
So, but as long as because it is a customer based job in a sense, because you are providing a service to them as a caretaker to care for them.
Gotcha.
So, as long as the care that you're giving them and that they're receiving, you're both happy with,
Yeah.
it continues on until their untimely demise, or
Gotcha.
until their
Okay.
situations may change or different things like that.
And then another thing you said that's obviously important is in terms of payment, you're getting paid from the state, which that's guaranteed, as opposed to having to chase such and such down to pay you for just performing a service that you're performing, which is good. Uh,
And then
Go ahead.
not only am I getting paid, but then the money is actually tax free.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a tax free industry.
How,
So,
how,
So
Hey,
yeah, so and then it's a plethora of benefits that you tap into because of it. That it when I tell you this industry and like how it's set up and different things like that is definitely a very profitable industry, but it's not one that
a lot of
you
people
don't
can.
jump into it for the money. You have to
Yeah,
have the compassion aspect
sure.
and component of it as well because you are caring for people, loved ones.
But I
So
mean,
you
again, but that's still because again, I just think it gives another option to be able to make money. Because I do know, we come from a very a very caring place. I guess more so back then than it is now. But a lot of people do have that skill set of caring for others and like they're like the person was their own, and just to be able to get paid for that and get paid, tax free, as well as the other benefits from it. I think is another option that people just don't know about. Now, I guess I want to be respectful of your time. So I do want to ask you this question before kind of finishing up on maybe at least the real estate, because I know you talked about having some land and obviously some properties down where you're staying now. But how I know we talked offline about it being difficult to, I guess, get information to get access to this type of industry. Can you talk about that a little bit as far as what you had to go to and go through to get, I guess, into this industry, and if someone else who's watching, an audience member watching, wanted to maybe kind of follow suit in a way, just kind of some action items that they can uh, I guess carry out so that they can at least get information and potentially also do something similar wherever they stand at. Because I'm imagining that you can do this wherever, whether it's on the East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, South. This is not just one geographical location or region thing. This is everywhere. So can you talk a little bit about kind of you breaking into the industry and then what others can do if they wanted to follow suit?
Yeah, so this is it's a state specific program, and then some of them, like in Georgia, it's even county requirements.
Okay.
But the way that I broke in is that I googled people that was providing the service near me, and I called them one by one. And
Yeah.
I the person that I got in contact with, she actually, I want to say she owns about 10 or so homes, and then she also owns a adult, not a, it wouldn't be considered adult, but it's a community, um they call it CAG, but it's basically a group home where she provides the day program that these individuals go to during the day, and then she also provides them transportation, and
Okay.
each one of those is its own separate check.
Gotcha.
So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then she's not only that, she's a young black woman.
Really?
um
How do you know how old she is, or is about like in like
I
30s?
want to say Nicole is in her late 40s.
Okay, okay, and she has. So I'm imagining because you talked about like when you have your own facility, how many people that can you have in your not facility, but if you have your own home, can you have more than just a two or three? Uh, how,
Yeah,
how does that
so
work?
when they're home based, you can only have up to three.
Okay, okay,
So if you're doing a home, is three, and then after three, it's a lot of more requirements that you have to be eligible for additional. And then that, like I said, that's also county specific. So for DeKalb County, which is the county I live in,
yeah,
that's their requirement. Some of the other counties out here in Georgia have different requirements, but I
gotcha.
think they're pretty much the same. So, but your max is about three.
Okay,
And
okay,
so you can have three individuals in a house at a time. Um, and so that on pairing that with everything else she has going on, she's doing very well.
okay. Oh, that's man, that's cool. So then I guess you're talking about no, so you Googled or you're caught around one by one after you Googled I guess I'm imagining that you're Googling like the industry and within your particular area. And then you said, so you finally talked to somebody and then they gave you kind of the ropes or at least some more action items that you can carry out to get closer towards actually starting up with the home healthcare.
Yeah. So they kind of gave me the beginning steps.
Okay.
But the thing with this industry is that it changes so frequently. So the information that she had from when she started the process 10 years ago isn't kind of the same process that you start now, but she was able to kind of guide me on the next steps that I needed to take.
Got you.
And so that's currently where I'm at now. The property that I currently own, the other property that I currently own, I'm in the process of starting that up underneath my own agency. So I'll be, my own separate entity from her.
Oh, okay. So right now, it seems like you're, again, what you said, subcontractor. So you're affiliated
Mhm.
with her, but you're in a process of getting your own agency so that you would be pretty much on your own and kind of dealing. So I'm assuming that she deals directly with the agency at this point, but with your own agency, when you have your own agency, uh, or I'm not sure if they're dealing
She-
directly with the state or whoever or
Yeah.
the county, but when you have your own agency, you will be dealing directly with the county at that point.
Yeah, so she deals directly with the state and she deals directly with Medicaid.
Okay.
So when I start my own agency, it's a process because to get to this side of, because you have care that you can give for elderly, you have care that you can give for to be private hire, and then the care for the developmental, those with developmental disabilities requires you to have a certain amount of years of experience
Got you.
providing care as an agent or with your own agency or your own company.
Got you.
So this side of dealing with the developmental disabilities is probably going to take me about 2 to 5 years to be able to secure the position for it. But it's kind of like the entry point to getting into the industry is you got to start somewhere, and that's kind of like where you start at is what is considered a personal care home.
Okay.
And it's a little different, but it's pretty much the same. It's just the care that you provide, maybe for the elderly for a while until you can transition to get the experience that you need.
Yep.
But for anybody that's looking to get into the industry, one of my biggest utilization tools is Facebook groups.
Okay.
So anytime that I'm trying to figure out something or anytime I want to learn something about an industry or different things like that, I start Googling Facebook groups and finding these, these people that's doing it and different things like that. Um, and I'm a big firm believer on trying to figure out information myself before I pay somebody, because there's a lot of people out here that's charging for consultations and different things like that, and they don't
Yeah.
know what they're talking about, or they
Yeah,
don't know what they're
exactly.
doing, or they charging too much for what it is that they're providing.
Right.
Um, so I make sure that if I am paying for a consultation, that is well worth it and is, I've exhausted all of my options and resources.
Yep.
But for the most part, now that I'm learning this stuff, the majority of your information can be found on your state website.
Got
So
you.
the Department of Health and Human Services, the department out here is called the Department of Community Health. That's where I would say to start with. It's very similar to, foster care and different things like that. And a lot of most of the departments that are responsible for this are responsible for those departments as well.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask, what would be the difference between doing something like this and then foster care? Because it does sound very similar to foster care, especially when you're dealing with the kid part of it is just with the mental disability or maybe having a mental disability.
Um, I would say the biggest part is like you really can't build a business off of foster care. You
That's
could build
true.
a business off of group homes,
Yep.
but the other side to these group homes is that these kids can be unruly. And the same thing with
Especially
these
these days.
individuals and stuff like that. So uh it kind of just depends, but I know I've known people that's done the group homes with the juveniles and stuff like that,
Yep.
and it's kind of stressful because those are the kids that are in the stages of their life where they're trying to figure it out but don't quite have it figured out,
Yep.
and they're being resilient or disobedient, or they just lost a little bit.
For sure. For sure.
um and so it can be challenging dealing with them type of kids. And then they're also you dealing with the component where you dealing with foster kids. Most time they've been snatched up out their house due to various situations. So
Yeah.
you're dealing with that underlying issue of, why they're even
Um,
placed in your home.
for sure.
With these individuals, most of the time their family is supporting, their family just can't provide the care for them due to their disability. So
Oh,
it's not they're here because they don't, they didn't got snatched up out their home or something like that.
yeah.
It's more so due to the fact that the level of care that they need, their family isn't able to provide for
Right.
them. But most of them are still in contact with their family
Oh,
and
that's
different things
cool.
like that.
Yeah.
My one client, she goes stay with her mom, once or twice out the month and different things like that.
Okay.
So that's the different on the dynamic is that you may very well still have family that's supporting and caring and
Yeah.
contacting these individuals.
Okay, okay. No, that's cool. And then I guess maybe my last question. I know we're about an hour and 15 minutes. You talked about having real estate, property that you're at least there's one scenario you're in the process of having that be the home where uh these people come stay at, when you kind of form your own agency. How did you get off into that? And then do you have other property within that Georgia area or elsewhere? Can you talk about a little bit about kind of your real estate background and how did you get off into that?
So honestly, the real estate, I ended up using the VA.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's probably by far one of the best loans to use as far as securing single family homes or whatever. And it can be used over and over again. A lot of people's under the assumption that you can only use your VA loan once. I've used it twice already. And I've acquired the house that I'm currently in, and I've acquired one of my other properties that I'm in. And is that's kind of like how I got off into it. Is using that component, and then also trying to build generational wealth. And what I'm also looking into, and I just recently started researching, is these tax properties that go up for taxes.
Okay.
And so that's another way that I'm planning on kind of like trying to acquire real estate, is through the tax sales.
And man, I,
And
I
then,
I would just say, just be careful with that because that's kind of how I got my start in the real estate. 10 years ago, and I probably acquired like 4 or 5 homes through the tax sale back in the Muskegon area, and it's cool. It's different types of deeds that you have. As far as you have a quick claim deed, which is pretty much it gives you the less amount of protection, all the way up until your warranty deed, which gives you the most uh protection. Now, when you buy a property from an auction, you essentially get a government deed or government sale deed, which is the equivalent of a quick claim deed,
mhm,
but it's just given out by the government. So I guess that's why they call it a government deed as opposed to a government sale deed as opposed to a quick claim deed. And a lot of times, or I have ran into the issue of when I go to sell the property, the title company not wanting to insure against the deed if things are not done in order in terms of giving proper notice to people when they're taking their houses back and things like that. So I mean, fortunately, I was able to get through it, although it was a hurdle. So I guess that'd be the only thing that I talk about, or that I would maybe caution you on as far as the quick claim deed, just to make sure that the house that you and maybe because I was young when I was doing this. I was like 20 something years old, early 20s, like 21, when I was buying
mhm,
these properties from an auction. So I wasn't thinking about, okay, when I go to exit this deal, I'm gonna have issues with the type of deed I have, and whether or
mhm,
not proper notice and things was given by the city when they took the house back, whether or not the signatures they got, the signatures from the person. Because a lot of times the city's going to give you notice that they're taking your property, and you have to essentially sign off on this paperwork by the mail carrier saying that you were notified. And obviously, you're getting your paper. I mean, you're getting your property taken. So a lot of times you're like, man, screw y'all. I'm not going to help y'all out, and that can cause some. I think that's in my situation that caused some issues. So I'm just saying, just be mindful of that. But I mean, I bought what, like I said, my first 4 or 5 properties were from the tax auction. So that's just something to be aware of with that.
okay.
But
Yeah,
then
'cause I'm new to the process, and
and I'm not sure how it works in Georgia. This is just in the Michigan area.
Michigan.
How Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, because I know out here they have a year and a day to pay off the taxes, along with the interest that's secured for you paying the taxes off. And then if they don't, you have possession of the property. And I know, like in Alabama, you have possession of the property instantly, and then they have a certain amount of time to pay or whatever. But that when I looked into it, and I actually went to the auction sale, because my neighbor almost lost her house. It's kind of how I got
Gotcha.
familiar with it. I was just like, okay, I seen how these people buying these houses up and different stuff like that. And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like, and it was houses that people didn't bid on or didn't,
yeah.
go towards. So it was more so like not necessarily even acquiring houses that are able to be rented out or different things like that, than it is just acquiring the property. Because out here in Georgia, like, houses that barely is standing is selling crazy just for the land.
And then
Um,
just to put things in perspective, because that's what you had in the Muskegon area when I was
mhm,
buying them. You get a lot of these California, these residents are out from the West Coast where you're selling a house for 50 grand. That's pennies to them. So they'll come out and spend $1 million or $500,000 on a number of properties just because, I mean, to get a pretty much a shack in California, it's $1 million where you can, and for $1 million in here, you're going to get about 20 properties. So
Mhm.
it's just kind of that dynamic. Also, when you're talking about out of state money coming, that I'm not. I would be surprised if you do have out of state uh investors, coming to these different tax auctions. Have you noticed that? But I definitely noticed it when I was going to them that you had out of state. And again, you don't even need to be there physically. You can do it online at this point, which
Mhm.
makes it even easier for out of state investors to participate.
Yeah.
So,
And so is that, and then we also have land back in Michigan too.
okay.
It's in North Muskegon that we're looking to see about developing. It's like 20 acres.
Wow.
It's supposed to be a family project, but it looked like it's more so going to be just a few a few of us participating in that project.
Okay.
But yeah, so we're kind of waiting to see about developing it. But that's pretty much kind of like my entry into real estate. But I know I definitely got a bad taste put in my mouth about tenants. So that's how I kind of like also ended up in this industry, because I was like, I want real estate, but I don't want to have to deal with tenants. I need to find the most profitable way to make money and be able to increase my portfolio.
Yeah, and that was exactly kind of my take because dealing with the single family homes, unless you have 30, 40 homes, which I wouldn't recommend doing, even though you can make money in them. You're dealing with all these tenants, but for the multifamily standpoint, you can acquire a 100 unit complex, and you have a property management managing everything. So now you're like a step removed from the situation. You are not
Mhm.
dealing with the tenants individually. You're just dealing with the property management company. You may be dealing with them, once a week. Uh, I ran into some certain investors who they haven't talked to their property management company in a month or in months, which I wouldn't recommend that just because you don't know what's going on with the property. But you're just further removed, so you're not dealing with the tenants. And that's why for me, multifamily or apartment complexes, that just was like the next natural progression. Because I still like real estate, I still like that from a wealth generation, a wealth building standpoint. But between the tenants and then just kind of dealing with my time, it was like, okay, I don't have the time to do this, just kind of based on what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. But with having been in the multifamily game and having an apartment, the property management, being able to essentially manage the property and deal with the tenants, it just made more sense. So,
Yeah,
so,
and
so
see,
go ahead.
and that's kind of how because the multifamily is in the same sense like trying to quadruple your money for this position that you putting yourself in. And
For
so
sure.
that's how I was ended up, because I was like, when you do rent the houses out, you may make a $500-600 profit after you can set aside the money for maintenance expenses and different stuff like that. And based off of, depending on how much the mortgage is or whatever it is that you're doing. So to me, it wasn't worth it due to the liability that it opened up for you. So that's how I was like, no, I need to capitalize the best way possible.
For sure.
Um, but yeah, so I want to get well, no, I'm going to get to your level to get to
Yeah.
these commercial real estate and stuff like that, because that is definitely less of a headache. But yeah.
And then it just has a lot more benefits when you're talking about depreciation and all
Hmm.
those other things. So, man, it just kind of makes sense. But I guess one last question. So, with the VA loan, is that like a 0% interest? If that is that accurate, or like what's the benefit of the VA loan for for veterans?
So the VA loan is no down payment. So
Oh, it's no
um
down payment.
yeah, so it's no down payment. My interest, I want to say, is like when I purchased it, it was about 3.2.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Um, yeah, and so I just had to pay the closing costs on the house.
No, I mean, obviously your down payment is a big expense depending on
Hmm.
the purchase price for the property. And then, from my understanding, you can do that with anywhere up to 4 units, right? It just doesn't have to be a single family, correct?
You can actually do it up to 10. You could do 9. Once you get to the 10th is when you have to convert over to commercial.
And you're saying so you can get. I'm talking about the how many units in a property.
So now that part I would have to see,
Okay.
because you may be right. I think it may be 4
Okay.
that you could do as far as a multifamily with one purchase. But yeah, but you can keep reusing it over and over again. But it has like entitlement. So every year the entitlement for the loan changes on how much you can borrow or whatever you call it. But yeah, it's definitely one of them things that people don't realize or don't leverage,
Yeah.
or don't know how to leverage.
Man, yeah. Again, look, I guess I'm too much of a. I want to say a sissy because I wouldn't. I'm far from that. But I I don't like the military thing just in terms of not being in control of like my day to day situation like that.
Mhm.
But man, if I was a veteran or somebody who had military experiences and no longer is in the military, you're talking about man, this VA loan. If you can do up to 4 units, and you're saying you can do up to 4 units 9 times with zero down. I mean, obviously you have to kind of the price, like you said, the purchase price, a purchasing power changes from
It usually
property to
increases
property.
every year.
Oh, really? So yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you can,
When I first started, it was like at 470. Right now, I think it's at 620.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So a quad, which is a 4 unit, that's going to be around $500,000 depending, and that's in like a good area. You may
Mhm.
have some if it's an amazing area, maybe north of 500 grand, but man, you can get a quad for 400,000 dollars. So if you're saying you can do that and you get one per year, you can end up in what 10 years or whatever. You have what 9 quads or 9 years, you have nine quads, 36 units, and man, as long as you're buying them at the right price, man, you're talking about creating generational wealth. That's it. You have these things, $10 million worth of property at that point. So if I was a
Mhm.
veteran and just what I know about real estate and being able to kind of maneuver, that's almost like the real estate hack for me, a veteran real estate hack that
A lot
it'll
of
be on and
people ain't
popping at that
utilizing,
point.
and that's the thing about it, because that's what I tell people. One of my biggest accomplishments, or things that has definitely put me ahead, was joining the military, and that small sacrifice that I did for those 6 years has definitely been way beneficial for everything else, because even to the point of like I get a check
Yeah,
for the rest of my life. I get a
for sure.
disability check,
Yep,
and I only committed 6 years.
yep.
So
No,
it's so many different things but that the real estate portion of it, and being able to leverage yourself on that aspect. Um, I tell people all the time, like, that's by far, especially these young kids, that
yeah.
they really don't know what they want to do with themselves anyway.
At all. Yeah, no, you're right about that. You're definitely right about that. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I appreciate you giving us some time here today to kind of talk through a number of things. I think this was very helpful information, and I think the audience will get a lot out of it. If someone wanted to follow you, just kind of keep up with you, or just kind of follow kind of what it is that you have going on, or maybe ask you a question, do you have any social media handles, LinkedIn handles that maybe we can put in the description so that people can kind of follow you or maybe ask you a question if they have it based on the interview today?
Yep. So you can follow me on Instagram at Thanks in Advance, and there's underscore at the end of that. And then I'm also on Facebook. My name is Tia Drain, or Tia Farmer. You can find me on that as well. And then I also will be in the process now of launching a course called the Recruit Training Academy,
Okay.
to help people transition into the military and utilize the benefits while going into the military.
Got you.
And that'll be starting soon. I'm in the process of getting that up and running. I want to shoot for the end of May of having that course completed as well.
And I like that because a lot of times you hear a lot of people talking about how to successfully transition out of the military. But I guess at least I've never heard of somebody saying, "Hey, how do you really get as much as you can out the military as possible?" And just kind of uh, having a course teaching that. So I mean, I'm interested in seeing that rolled out. So is that something that as it's coming out, you'll kind of post on social media or a website or whatever the case may be to let others know that that's dropping and that's out for others to use?
Yep. So once I get it completed and everything like that, I'll actually be rolling it out. And then I'm also already tied to talking some speaking engagements out here in Atlanta, talking to some of the kids in high school. So some of these graduates and different things like that. So uh I plan on using, different platforms and stuff like that to try to get it out there. So
Okay.
you'll definitely be seeing it around and different things, but it is an untapped market. There's nobody
Sure.
that's really guiding these people. They've kind of like leaving it up to the recruiters to do that. But it with that is what has made it kind of like a prolonged process, because it's one of those things I don't have anybody that I can copy and paste from it.
Yeah.
I got to come up and I got to do all of it and all of the the work myself,
Yeah.
and it's all within my head. So it ain't something that I can
Yeah.
kind of task somebody else with to do.
Yeah, for
Unfortunately.
sure, for sure. No, yeah, hey, that's one of the things I always said. Hey, if I'm starting, I would never start a business from scratch anymore. it'd have to be some type of synergy or, some type of business that was already established that I may be taking to the next level, or
Mhm.
maybe partner with somebody who brings the expertise, I bring expertise, and we kinda working it out together. So, no, that's cool. Hey, let me know if there's anything I can do to help out on that, uh, whether it's answer a question or, just provide, my expertise in any way. I mean, I think that's gonna be very valuable, to people who are looking to get as much out the federal government, as possible, 'cause, hey, trust me,
Hey,
Uncle Sam is gonna get as much out of you as possible. So,
I'm
uh
telling you.
no, I appreciate the time, again, this Friday, and, yeah, we'll definitely have to try to reconvene here once, a little further on when you come out with that, military course, especially just kinda, give us the 411 on that. In the meantime, I think this was good, and I think, audience will, get a lot from this. So I guess I'll give you any last words before we, close out here, for today.
I just tell people to live by the words of aspire to inspire or
Okay,
inspire to aspire. And that's just my biggest thing is make sure you pouring into people and make sure to be a good human.
there you go.
That,
I like
that,
that.
that's the end game to take all, and that's really all I got to say.
Okay. Well, on that note, I think we'll end there. So until next time, TEI family, have a good one.